Let's come back to Nigeria, because a time was when Nigeria is described as the heartbeat of frontier Africa's economy. In fact, as a matter of fact, Nigeria had often been referred to as the giant of Africa. Today, Nigeria is not the most advanced, it's not the most industrialized, it's not even the most productive economy on the continent. So the big question is, has Nigeria lost its Premier League regional economic leadership into a relegation status? Discussing this with me is a policy analyst and director at the Sustainability Center of the Lagos Business School, Professor Franklin Ngwu. Good evening to you, sir, Professor.
Thank you both for having me. Good evening.
I'm sure you've been around long enough to remember when Nigeria was referred to as the giant of Africa proudly by everyone on the continent, even beyond. But the question is, what does it mean to be a regional economic powerhouse, looking at not just in Africa, but around the world?
First of all, when you say that a country is a regional power, it means that that country is able to exercise significant power in terms of military, in terms of economic, in terms of social issues. And of course, these are exhibited with regard to the performance of the country in certain key variables. For example, GDP growth, for example, employment, for example, revenue, for example, poverty reduction, for example. These are some of these key variables. And when you are a regional economic power, it means that your influence and your power are clearly acknowledged and appreciated by the other neighbors that you have. So when you say that, it means that that country really, when it says something or when anything happens in that region, the contribution or the interest of that country are normally considered very well.
So, for example, you consider China a regional economic powerhouse in Asia.
Exactly. So if you look at the global regional powerhouses, you talk about China, for example. You talk about India. You talk about, if you go to Middle East, you talk about Turkey. Then you talk about Brazil and maybe a bit of Argentina. Then, of course, US, UK, and Germany in Europe and all that. So these are regional economy. But then when you come to Africa, you talk about South Africa, Nigeria, then Kenya as emerging, and maybe Egypt. And so these are regional economic powers. And of course, all these countries I've listed in terms of economics, in terms of military, in terms of social issues, they are actually number one in terms of performance in these key variables.
Where do you think Nigeria is right now in terms of regional economic leadership? What does circumstantial evidence reveal?
Nigeria, of course, as you said earlier, is regarded as giant of Africa. But clearly, based on evidence, we are losing that status in terms of the key variables. So if you look at it, let's look at foreign direct investment. We are not attracting what we are supposed to attract. In terms of course, Continental Free Trade Agreement, the headquarters is now in Ghana. And of course, our good friend Twitter, when they decided to choose a headquarters, they moved to Ghana. Toyota as well, they prefer Ghana. So this clearly tells you that you're not doing well as a regional economic power. And when you also look at other variables, like our poverty rate, unemployment, insecurity, there was a report recently that almost 80 people die in Nigeria on a daily basis. Of course, these signs or these evidences do not really suggest that we are still regional economic power. Even though, based on our population, based on our GDP, we have the potential to achieve this, but currently we are losing it and we are declining in terms of our relevance, in terms of our status.
So when Nigeria was described as the giant of Africa, what does that really connote in economic terms beyond pedestrian political posturing?
What it means in lay terms is it means that when you say that Nigeria is the giant of Africa, it means, number one, that our economy is the highest in Africa. It means also our population was also the highest. In terms of military, our military was considered as the most powerful military in Africa. And of course, when you talk about other issues, people prefer to come to Nigeria. When Nigeria sneezes, the whole of West Africa will start shaking. So that's when we are considered that. But now when other smaller countries, Senegal, Ghana, and other countries are attracting more attention, more FDI, more relevance in terms of economic relations, foreign relations, of course, that means that we are really losing it.
Look at the trend from 1999, civilian democracy to date. would you say Nigeria has really advanced as a regional economic powerhouse of reckoning?
Yes, of course, when we transitioned into democracy again in 1999, there was a kind of global acceptance that Nigeria is really back to reckoning. And of course, we now started having many companies trying to come into Nigeria. We had a debt relief. We had so many. So of course, Nigeria started moving up the ladder. We rebased our GDP. It became clear that Nigeria was the highest, higher than South Africa. So we were moving, and we've been growing. And if you also look at economic growth in all these years, it's been there. We've been growing and growing, but surprisingly, and suddenly, since 2015, 16, it hasn't been like that. Of course, we moved into a recession in 2016, came out before COVID came. We went back into a recession. We've been told that we are now growing at our 0.11 at Q4 of 2020. So it means that we've actually started moving into that our status as the giant of Africa. But suddenly we are declining, and it means that means we have to rethink what we are doing to see how we can reclaim our status as the giant of Africa.
So if you say you're the giant in terms of GDP size, but look at GDP per capita, you're talking about inflation, exchange rates, mystery index, unemployment, maternal mortality. Now, would you say Nigeria is still the giant of Africa in the positives or the negatives?
In both positives and negatives, of course, you still agree that give and take, we are still one of the countries that can be reckoned as one of the regional powers. But of course, we are leading more now in the negative terms. Of course, Lagos is considered as the biggest economy in Nigeria, biggest state, and of course, and all that. But a recent report showed that Lagos is the second most stressful city in the whole world. So that tells you the state of things in Nigeria. But as I said earlier, in terms of our population, in terms of our potential, in terms of what we can do, in terms of the talents that we have, there is still hope. But in terms of the negative variables, as you mentioned, poverty, inequality, unemployment, insecurity, mortality rate, all that, we are really not doing what we are supposed to do. But when we consider it in totality, based on the negatives and the positives, you can still believe that we are one of the countries that are supposed to lead Africa in terms of some of these key areas.
Now, so who are the emerging economic powerhouses competing for global investment, and why are they getting international attraction and funds and so on?
So if I focus, let me talk about Africa, for example. So you have countries like Mauritius, you have countries like Kenya, Ghana, Senegal. These are countries that are attracting significant attention at the moment. And the reasons why they are doing this is because they are really doing certain things in the right direction. So if you take key governance variables like rule of law, regulatory quality, government effectiveness, these countries are doing a lot better than Nigeria. So FDI, foreign direct investment, for example, would prefer to go to these countries than to come and invest in Nigeria with our level of insecurity, poor rule of law, and all those other factors. So, but what can we do to change it? So if you look at Rwanda, for example, it's a landlocked country, but it's really getting certain things right, and that's why many companies are more or less investing in Rwanda. If you look at Kenya, for example, you can see the governance is clearly showing signs and evidences of effectiveness. If you look at Ghana as well, the same thing. If you look at Senegal as well, the same thing. But when you come to Nigeria, the rhetorics are not correct. Some of the policies are questionable, and some of the way we engage with the public and with the private sector is also quite questionable. So if you look at Twitter, for example, people are clamoring that they shouldn't be banned. There should be better ways of engaging with Twitter to see if there are certain things that are doing that we don't like, we can properly engage them rather than outright ban. So some of these ways that we engage and some of the ways we've been governing the country clearly show that we are not doing the right thing.
Okay, thank you very much for your time this evening. From Lagos Business School, Professor Franklin Ngwu, Director of Sustainability. We hope to hear from you next time on the show.